Okay, let's try a couple more. Okay, for number 7, again, I want you to simplify. For number 7, I want you to simplify 3 over 7 plus root 3. 3 over 7 plus root 3. So here, I have, this is a complex number, okay? It's part whole number and part irrational. So part rational, part irrational. How do I get rid of this denominator? What do I multiply by? By 7 minus root 3. You have to multiply both the top and the bottom by the same thing. Okay, we're going to multiply both the top and the bottom by the same thing. So in the top, we just distribute. So that's 21 minus 3 root 3. And in the denominator, we're going to FOIL. So multiply the first times first gives you 49. The outsides gives you minus 7 root 3. Insides is plus 7 root 3. And last is minus a whole 3. I got that from negative, and then root 3 times root 3 gives you a whole 3. Here the insides cancel out, which is what's supposed to happen. And in the top we still have 21 minus 3 root 3. What do I get in the denominator? 49 minus 3, 46. Okay, 46. And that is our answer. Questions? Anyone have questions? Sorry. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to move on to solve. Okay, so solve actually means we're going to get an answer for x. So for number 8, I would like you to solve 2x squared minus 15 equals 65. 2x squared minus 15 equals 65. Now, all of what we did last unit had to do with solving. Okay? This is still solving, but it's a little bit different. Okay? In our last unit, in unit 4, everything was able to be factored. Okay? What we're going to deal with in unit 5 are things that are not factorable. Okay? So we're actually solving non-factorable quadratics. So we're going to do things a little bit differently. Okay? In the last unit, we moved everything to one side, set it equal to 0. The reason we did that was because we could factor and then set the parts equal to 0. These are not factorable. So how did we solve things before we knew how to factor? Do you guys remember? We would put numbers and letters on opposite sides. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to move the 15. I'm going to move 15, add 15 to both sides. And we're going to put numbers and letters on opposite sides to solve. So that would give us 2x squared equals 65 and 15 gives you 80. How would I solve from there? Divide by 2. All right, divide by 2. That gives us x squared equals 40. How did we get rid of a square? You root. Now, does anyone remember what's the rule whenever you root? If you introduce a radical, you must put plus or minus in the next step. Okay? If you introduce a radical, you must put plus or minus in the next step. So here, you have to put plus or minus. Now, what happens with the square root of x squared? The root and the square cancel each other out. So we end up with just x equals root 40, and then you do need to simplify if possible. So can I break something out of root 40? Yes, that breaks down to 4 and 10, which breaks down to 2 and 2, and 2 and 5. So we can take out a pair of 2's. Left behind will be the 2 and the 5. Now, be really careful here. This plus or minus goes in front of the number. Okay, in front of the number, not in between. Okay, so this is plus or minus 2 root 10. Be careful to not mix up where the 2 and the plus and minus go. That's your answer for this. Okay, so x is equal to plus or minus 2 root 10. That's your answer. Okay, just a couple more for you. Do we have questions so far? Okay, couple more. I would like you to solve 1/3 times x minus 4 quantity squared equals 11. 1/3 times x minus 4 squared equals 11. Now, what's the thing that you hate most about this problem? The fractions. How do I get rid of this fraction? Multiply by the reciprocal. What is the reciprocal of 1/3? Multiply by 3. If you write over 1, that's fine, but it's not really necessary. Okay, these go away. So we end up with just x minus 4 squared equals 33. Now, in our last unit, I would make you multiply this through and then set everything equal to 0. So we'd move it over, factor, and solve. I will tell you now we're dealing with non-factorable quadratics. So what's another way I could get rid of this square? You can't, yes, you could just cross it out, but mathematically I can root it. Okay, if I put in a root, I have to put in a plus or minus in the next step. The root cancels out the square, so we get x minus 4 equals plus or minus root 33. And how do I get rid of the 4? Add it. Okay, so add 4 to both sides. We end up with x equals 4 plus or minus root 33. Okay, so be careful. You do write the 4 first. Okay, if I write it next to the root 33, that would be multiplying. Okay, we're not multiplying, we're adding. So our answer here is 4 plus or minus root 33. Can I have one more for you? Okay, one more. The last one is I want you to solve 3 times x minus 2 squared equals 40. 3 times x minus 2 squared equals 40. Any ideas? Where do you think I'm going to start? Get rid of the 3. How do I get rid of that 3? Divide it away. So divide by 3. Divide by 3 on that side. So that'll leave us with an x minus 2 squared equals 40 over 3. How do I undo that square? Root it, which means I put a plus or minus in the next step. So this goes away. We get x minus 2 equals plus or minus root 40 over root 3. I just split that into 2. What's wrong with this root 40 over root 3? Can't have a root in the bottom. So what do I have to do? Multiply it by itself. What do we call that? If I'm getting rid of the denominator? Rationalize the denominator, right. So how do I rationalize that denominator? I multiply top and bottom by root 3 over root 3. And if you multiply that together, we still have x minus 2 equals, you still have a plus or minus. Underneath the root, you have 40 times 3 over root 3 times root 3 is just a total 3. Now, can I break things out of the top?
No. Yes.
Yes, because I can break down 40. 40 would break down to be what?
2 and 10.
Okay, break it down. So 20 times 2. 20 breaks down to 2 and 10. 10 breaks down to 2 and 5. So make sure you cross things out once you've broken them down. Otherwise, it gets really confusing. Okay, so what can I take out here? I have a pair of 2's. Okay, so we still have x minus 2 equals plus or minus. Can anything else be taken out? No. So what's left behind? A 3, a 2, and a 5. Multiply those together. It's a 30 over what?
3.
A whole 3. And then finally, what do I do to get x by itself? Add 2. So your actual answer here is x equals, the 2 goes first, this 2 goes first, plus or minus 2 root 30 over 3. But be careful to not make this all a fraction. Okay? So yes, this answer looks weird. You have never seen an answer like this before. Okay, but that is correct. You're supposed to have one part that's a whole number, one part that's a fraction with a radical underneath it. Okay, that's your answer. Okay, for this,
Where did you get that, like, divide by 3?
where did I divide by 3?
No, like, on the, like, where'd you get that from?
This 3?
Yeah.
From the bottom. I multiplied both sides, so this one gets a whole 3. Okay, write this down, please. Your homework is on page 269 in your book. I will put it up here in just a second. You are doing numbers 3 through 33 odd, as well as number 34 and 44 through 60 even. Okay? A lot of your homework is just simplifying. Okay, it's just simplifying. The second half is where you're actually doing the solving and that kind of stuff. Okay? So you're going to go ahead and get started on this.